really wish that there was a cool song for Samson like there was for Gideon.
All right, a little too far back. It's Gideon. It's for Gideon. I bet we can find one.
There's a really, I showed you the cover to that Earth record that's based off the Samson story, which is pretty cool. So
I'd say that counts.
that counts, yeah.
I'd say that definitely
So
counts.
welcome to The Bible is Metal. I'm Chad, got Graham here.
Hello.
We're here for Samson.
Yes.
Finally. So earlier in the season, we were live streaming these episodes. We're pre-recording them now, but doing them live. So we're in the comments if you want to come and hang out and talk in the comments. But thanks for coming and hang out. The Bible is Metal.
Yeah.
We've been doing the book of Judges for months now. We're almost done. Do you realize that?
I know, we're on the downward slide.
We've got 2 stories after Samson.
Yep, that's it.
We've got the Levite and all that kind of craziness.
Yeah.
And then we have that whole story at the back half.
Oh yeah. Don't even talk about that.
That's the only thing I'll say about that. That's the passage that both Meredith, my wife, and Allison Sauls, who's a pastor here a few years back, told me I was not allowed to preach. And to be honest, one of the reasons I want to do the Bible is Metal is to talk about that
just
story.
to talk about that.
That story. Like,
this is just all the introduction to that. That's what this whole
we've been introducing for 3 months this last quarter of Judges that Chad's not allowed to preach. But we've been stoked for Samson for a while, though.
Put this right here. Now, this is a long story. I don't want everybody to be hearing me flipping through a Bible the whole time, so I'm going to be scrolling. All right, I've got the old Bible app.
Yeah, and we're only doing the first half of Samson.
Yeah, we're only doing the first half. It might not even be the first half, really.
It's a
little bit less.
We're breaking it up. We'll just say that much.
Yeah. Because it's long. It's long. If I stumble over my words here, bear with me. But here we go. So, right now, the Israelites are under the rule of the Philistines. Correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
For 40 years.
For 40 years, okay? They're under the rule of the Philistines, and basically there are these people, all right? And what are their names?
Zora.
There's...
Oh, no. Manoah, and his wife is not named.
Well, there we go. That's why I couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
So, his wife... did you say Zora?
Yeah. No, he's a man of Zora.
Of
the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah.
Okay, so Manoah's wife can't have children, all right? And this happens a lot in the Bible. Basically, she says to the Lord, if you give me a child, he will be all yours.
I'm looking. We talked about this. We were eating lunch before we did this. I was looking. She didn't ask. The angels
She didn't ask?
No, the angels just showed up for them.
Never mind. It just came up and said, look, you're having a kid, all right? Imagine that. So anyways, so that happens, and she's like, this is crazy. And so she goes and tells her husband. She's, full of joy, obviously, because they wanted a kid. And basically, she doesn't know it's an angel yet. So she goes and tells the husband. They're all excited and stuff. And so while she's out working the fields one day, the angel comes back, and she says, wait here, and I will come sacrifice a goat to you, which is kind of weird if she didn't know.
Well, they tried to feed him first.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take it as food, but he said make a sacrifice.
Okay. So she goes and brings a goat, and she brings her husband. All right. She's, I got to go tell my husband, wait here. So they come, and they ask for more instructions as to, what to do with the kid. And the angel basically says, you must not cut his hair. That's some serious foreshadowing.
Yeah.
You must not cut his hair. Do anything you want, just don't cut his hair. Not literally do anything you want, but you know what I mean. So, they basically say, okay, they take what kind of vow was it?
Nazarite.
A Nazarite vow. That sounds really, really metal, if you ask me. It sounds like some kind of vow you don't want to break.
Nazareth was not that good of a metal band. You ever heard Nazareth? Okay. Love Hurts?
You're right.
I was so mad when Love Hurts was on. I think it was the Dazed and Confused soundtrack, and I got mad. I was like, y'all wasted, back when CDs had minutes, it's like y'all wasted 4.5 minutes on not a good song.
I hate on Nazareth, man. I hate on Nazareth. So they took a Nazarite vow to never cut his hair, and that's pretty much the only instructions they were given.
So the Nazarite vow is you're not to cut your hair. I'm going to talk more about the Nazarite vow when I talk, but to not cut your hair, to not eat or drink anything that comes from grapes.
They did say that.
And to not touch a dead body. It's like that's the 3 things of a Nazarite vow.
Okay.
So
that's the vow they took for him, right? For him, not for... Okay. So cool. So now you got all that, and Samson's born. She named him Samson. It wasn't the angel's doing. And, nothing really happens. He has random spurts of like kind of strong things that happen, but nothing crazy yet. So basically, when he comes of age, he decides he wants a Philistine wife. What was her name? I gotta remember. Terrible with names.
I'm looking right here. I don't know if she was named.
She might not have been named.
She's not. I don't think. That right there is an interesting hint in this story. So his mother's not named, and the first wife is not named.
One of them is. One of them isn't.
Well, one of them down the line gets named. So.
So he decides, I want a Philistine wife. And his father, of course, is like, why would you want to do this? They're our enemies. They've been ruling over us for like 40 years now. I mean, it's just completely insane. And he says, no, I don't. I want a Philistine wife. Little did they know, it was God trying to get all this stuff, the powder keg, to just set off. Okay? It's literally. I mean, that's what this was. It was just the spark. All right? So they go and they get his wife. And on the way there, a lion attacks Samson. This is the first crazy thing. God sends him strength and he rips the lion apart by the jaws with his bare hands, with the power of God's strength. I mean, literally, just rips it apart. I mean, like, I just imagine like 2 pieces of lion just flying. That rhymes.
2 pieces of lion flying. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's the Bible is Metal t-shirt.
Bible is Metal
2 pieces
t-shirt.
of lion flying.
And so he doesn't tell his parents for some reason. I don't know why. Why do you think he did that? Or are we going to talk about this later?
I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it. Well, I'm going to talk about stuff, but I don't know if I'm going to talk about that specifically.
So he doesn't tell his parents, goes and get his wife. And, it obviously takes a while to go to these places because they don't have cars, right? So on the way back, he finds that bees have made a hive in the lion's carcass and made honey. So he takes the honey out and he eats it. I mean, this guy's
It's metal.
Yeah, just metal, man. So he comes back and he basically, while his father is planning the wedding, I got that thing wrong when we were talking at lunch.
Yeah.
He basically tells all these people a riddle. He has a riddle for them. I really need to find that riddle.
I got it right here.
You got it right here?
Yeah. So this is during the wedding feast. This happens.
In the
And
wedding
the wedding feast lasts 7 days.
Okay.
So long party.
Yeah.
But here's the riddle: out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet.
Yeah. I can't believe he came up with that. He's an artsy guy, too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Really, he's jack of all trades.
I wish my Hebrew was good enough to read that in Hebrew because it might sound even cooler. But my Hebrew's not that good anymore.
Yeah, I don't think we need some Hebrew accents right now. So anyways. So he basically promises them, we'll exchange wealth. He really means like clothes, but like that pretty much means wealth back then.
Yeah, it's like these changes of clothing.
He's like, I will give them like 30 pairs of clothes, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Around 30. And so they sit there just pondering on it all week, and then they eventually just get so mad that they come up to his wife and they say, if you don't tell us the riddle, you don't solve the riddle for us, we're going to kill y'all.
Like we're going to burn your family's
we're going
house
to straight up just destroy everything.
Yeah.
And so she goes up to Samson, and it literally says that she nagged him until he finally told her the answer. And so he tells her the answer. Obviously, it's him.
What is sweeter than the men of the city came to him and said, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?"
And he's obviously talking about when he ate the honey out of the lion.
Yeah.
So she goes and tells them, and then they come back to Samson and say, oh, we figured it out, ha ha ha. And they tell him, and Samson says, he's all mad. He's like, if you hadn't have, he literally called his wife a heifer. If you hadn't have plowed my heifer to tell you these things, then none of this would have happened. You wouldn't have solved it. So, deal's a deal. He decides to go and kill 30 people to get those 30 clothes. I mean, he just goes down there and he literally just casually kills 30 people. I mean, just like that. I mean,
Yeah.
and he gives them the clothes. So basically, this is the spark that sets off just everything, right?
Yeah.
So now you get the Philistines super mad, obviously. They're going through and they're trying to get revenge. They're looking for Samson. They're going through here and they're destroying crops, destroying all this stuff. And the Israelites like, why are you doing this? And he says, we are looking for Samson.
Well, you're forgetting the part where, so you pretty much got it to where he, after this whole 9 yards happens, like it's like his marriage falls apart. Like he never takes his wife home.
Yeah.
Remember? And so he goes back to his father-in-law's house to find his wife because he wants to.
I skipped the whole thing there. Anyways,
yeah.
where Chad left off. He comes back home to his father-in-law's house, and he's like, "Where's my wife?" And he says, "Oh, I thought you didn't want her, so I gave her to your brother-in-law." And this is when he decides to get revenge on the Philistines. So what he does is, so basically this is during the time of the harvest. I mean, if you look outside right now, you just see dry corn, or the corn's gone, but it's bone dry, obviously.
Yeah.
And so he catches 300 foxes. I'd like to imagine he did it all at once. He just went into the woods and grabbed them. That's what I'd assume happened. And he basically ties them 2 by 2, or 1 by 1.
Yeah, 2 by 2 with the tail.
Yeah. So he gets like that, and he ties a lit torch to their tails, and he just sends them off into the wheat fields. And obviously, it's so dry, it just burns down everything. I mean, just everything is destroyed. This is where the Philistines come looking for Samson. My apologies. So the Philistines are now just like going through Israel. They're just beating people up. Like, where is Samson? And the Israelites are like, what is happening? You know?
Oh, they also killed the wife and her father.
Yeah.
The Philistines did.
They did that too. And so they go and they're looking for Samson. Now let me find here. I'm sorry. I should have kept scrolling.
It's chapter 15, verse 11.
15 verse 11. My bad. So 3,000 men of Judah went down to get Samson at the cave in the rock of Edom. I don't know why he's at the cave. Is he like hiding out? I guess he's just like, it doesn't seem like he'd be scared, so I guess he's just big chilling.
Just doing Samson stuff.
Just doing Samson stuff. And they said, they're like, what are you doing? Don't you realize these people were over us? And Samson simply says, I only did them what they did to me. So basically, to Samson, giving your wife to another man is the same as burning down your country.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, that's what he's saying. And so Samson, they basically say, the Philistines are going to kill us all, ravage us, if we don't hand you over. And so Samson says, all right, cool, fine. Just tie me up. Don't kill me. Hand me over to them. And they do that. They tie him with, and it's just thick ropes, just to make it even better.
Yeah.
They tie thick ropes around his hands, and he's like a prisoner just going over there. When they hand him over to the Philistines, the strength of God comes over him again, and he snaps the ropes, like what did it say, frayed straw or something. Yeah. And he just snaps it.
Flax that has caught fire.
A flax that has caught fire. So something really weak. I mean, we're talking like, no, zip tie is really strong.
That's but it's like they caught fire though. I mean, the flax that has caught fire, which is a wheat, and his bonds melted off his hands.
It's crazy stuff. And he takes the jawbone of a donkey and kills all of them.
Yeah, 1,000.
1,000 people with a jawbone of a donkey. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so it says it finishes off after this he was very thirsty. He called upon the Lord, said, "You've granted this great salvation by the hand of your servant. Shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" And God split open the hollow place that lay high, and the water came out from it, and he drank, his spirit returned, and he was revived. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years.
Crazy stuff.
So, okay. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Definitely.
So the Samson story, and that's I was talking to Graham earlier, I told him. So up until this point in time, in Judges, those first couple of Judges we talked about, that you saw high moral character.
Yeah,
like
they're good people.
Like a deep reliance on God, all this kind of stuff. And you start to see the trajectory trace downward. And last week with Jephthah, there was the weird brokering things with God, so his daughter ended up never getting married, never having children, breaking his family line. Yep. There was some moral questioning there.
Definitely.
But Jephthah was still like a good person.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
Samson, this is where you start having a hard time. Like there's so much moral suspicion in the Samson story.
Yeah.
And it just gets you into this situation. So a couple of things going on. First of all, the Philistines. These people showed up like out of nowhere. Okay. So you remember every episode we talk about how this whole area is just in crisis right now. There's a vacuum of power. All sorts of people are doing all sorts of stuff. In the archaeological record, there's a group of people that probably come from Greece, like Cyprus or an island in the Mediterranean. They call them the sea people.
The sea people.
And they show up on the coastline of Palestine, of Canaan, at this point in time. And if you look at Bible maps, that kind of things, like the Philistines, like say, stay on this coast.
Okay.
And so what you really see is the Philistines are this group of people who, like, imagine like Mediterranean Vikings.
Okay.
Like vacuum of power. Hey, let's go.
Yeah, let's go over here.
Try to control trade. At this point in time, like a lot of people did not do the ocean. And so the fact that they like did the ocean and had boats and stuff like that, that automatically like raised them up.
They're like pirates.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of like this weird like pirate Viking like thing. So they show up and then they begin oppressing the Israelites. So the Philistines are like a new thing that's going on. So just interesting things. So every time in the Bible that we find someone barren, we find these really, really incredible stories. So you have Samuel. This prophet. You have John the Baptist. You have that story. You've got Samson. Like whenever you see someone can't have a kid in Scripture,
stuff's about to go down.
Stuff's about to go down. But this angel shows up. They're not asking. It's a very different setup of a story. And just shows up and said, "Hey, you're going to have a son. He's going to be a Nazarite. He's going to take this vow, like all this kind of things." And the wife is just amazed. Like tells the husband, "He's like, if the guy shows back up, come tell me." And so guy shows back up, they go get, and they're so happy, they want to feed him. And that's where they realize this is not just a man, this is an angelic visitation. And he's like, "No, just make a sacrifice for me." And I have this like in my Bible marked. It's like, this is a different story. Like it is it's just weird. Like even weirder than normal.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, this is to me, like I didn't get a chance to kind of go into like the research stuff. This story doesn't sound like Judges to me right here. And so like I'm wondering, like super nerdy Bible stuff, like why does this not sound like Judges? But you see this fear of them, like is God doing this thing for us? Like there's tons of just questioning with Manoah and his wife back, what's going on? Absolutely. Like what's just going on here? And then I'm going to pull this up. We'll see if you can see this. In my Bible, whenever, I'm going to focus this, like wherever I have green underlined, what I'm doing a lot of times is I'm tracing like where are there parts of the story where like there's dots being connected. And what you begin to see with Samson is there's a lot of these in the spirit of the Lord. So even though he's morally suspicious at best, you see this whole, and this spirit of the Lord thing shows up at other places in Judges. This idea of like the power of God is resting on him. And so you've got the whole story about Samson and wanting the Philistine wife. He's saying, I'm disregarding the laws of God. Now, there's also an interesting thing that this Nazarite vow is not normally something is taking. It's very rare for people to take this for their whole life. Now, oddly enough, I just realized something.
What?
So, Samuel was also a Nazarite. Another one of these stories of like angelic visitation, you're not going to have a kid. John the Baptist,
he was also
he sounds a lot like a Nazarite when you read. So I'm wondering, okay, this is me, like you're seeing my light bulbs go off in my head as this goes on. I'm like, hold on a second. Now I'm going to go back tonight and study, is every single person in the Bible who takes a lifetime Nazarite vow, were they also born in one of these barrenness situations? So like, if you think the Bible's boring, I mean, it's crazy. Just like, that's why I do my whole green underline thing. It's like all these little dot connection things. And so it's no wine, no strong drink. It's all about setting him apart. Like the idea of being a Nazarite is you are made holy unto things. Now, a lot of people would take a temporary Nazarite vow. We see Paul doing things in the book of Acts, it sounds like. So somebody taking a 30-day Nazarite vow was not uncommon whatsoever at all. And you go to the temple and then you shave your head, you burn the hair as part of the sacrifice, you bring in a goat, like that kind of a thing. Like it was something that people would do to separate themselves for God for a specific reason. Normally they were seeking something, they were trying to find out something. So the Nazarite vow is not a weird thing. The lifelong Nazarite vow is interesting. And what you see Samson doing his entire life is neglecting his set apartness. Because that's what they came in and said, you are to be set apart. And you see Samson continually neglecting and like barely riding the line of breaking his Nazirite vow. Like some commentators would talk about how the Nazirite vow was not all alcohol, it was just wine. Now right here it says strong drink, and that strong drink is not wine. And so there's different stuff there, but he's just skirting this aside. You know, in the whole marriage thing, we also see with his parents as a failure of their own nerve to control Samson. Saying, you gave us to us, you were given to us, you were set apart from the very beginning, but you don't see them trying to raise and challenge Samson in this way.
Yeah.
So if this is probably not the first, so like a grown man trying to go get married, this is probably not the first time Samson has gone against this kind of stuff. His parents probably had this conversation with him just constantly. So you see a failure of nerve in Manoah and his wife. Also the fact that these women are not named. It's just interesting. I mean, there's probably stuff you can say about that. I don't know. I'm not at the point right now where I can say something about that as far as like research and study is concerned. But they're not being named in this story. And I think that's a foreshadowing of Delilah, because like we know Delilah is absolutely going to be named
definitely
inside of this. And so you've just got this, they won't stand up to him. And Samson says this, "Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes." And right there we find that recurring theme we see all throughout Judges, like, and that there was no king in Israel and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. So in the Samson story, we see someone who has tremendous promise, has been set aside, has been consecrated, but still is just doing what is right in his own eyes.
Yep.
And that's what he cares about. So you have this, the lion thing is just metal.
Just crazy.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Now you see right there again, though, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. So something about killing that lion is part of the story in an important way, because you look at where are all the places the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson. So if in some way, somehow the text is marking that lion killing as an action of deliverance. So it might have been an action of showing power. This is the first time you see Samson like show the power of God.
Yeah.
And so you have that inside of there. You get the back and forth that's going on with the companions. And what you really have here is he goes to this wedding, he goes to this 7-day festival, and they bring him 30 companions. What that means is he didn't have anybody on his own to come to his own wedding. So it's like, you know, you have the groomsmen and the bridesmaids. It's like he didn't have any groomsmen.
Oh.
So either the Israelites are mad at him for going and doing this, or he's already ostracized himself. Because you see Samson acting totally alone throughout this entire story. Like, there's no relationships. There's no friendships and that kind of stuff. So they gave him 30 men to stand with him, to be his companions at the wedding. And that's who starts this thing. And you almost see an animosity, as though they aren't happy that this Philistine girl is marrying an Israelite. Like, why are you doing this? And so there's the back and forth with the whole riddles, and it's like, it might be wedding customs, but there's clearly like cultural frustration that's going on between the two of them. And this is where this just kind of pulls out. And then yet again, you see the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30. And I think Ashkelon was one of the major cities of the Philistines. And so like, he didn't just go like some like backwater town with a flashing yellow light. Like, he went to the big city, killed 30 people, stripped them naked, and brought in, for some odd reason, their underwear and their clothes. Like, he's like, this was this deal we had. And it was a form of currency, but like, just this disdain for life whatsoever at all. And so you see, obviously, there's going to be a breaking between what's going on here. And I imagine, like, you know, you're not going to kill 30 people, steal their clothes, and the clothes don't have blood on them. Like, literally. Like, so that something has happened between when all this goes on. And like, have you ever seen bees build a hive anywhere?
Yeah.
Like, it takes a while, though. Yeah. So like, you tell, like, there's some, like, this chapter has some distance between.
There's some distance between it.
So you have verse 15 come up. He goes to his father-in-law's house. He still wants his marital rights with his wife. He's like, oh no, I gave her to one of these 30 guys because you didn't have any friends to come stand with you. Like, you're so broken in your relationships, you didn't have anybody. So I gave her because clearly you didn't want her. But the whole not being named thing again is just this is a great story to learn about patterns in the Bible, because there's so much just repeatable patterns.
There's a lot of just
over and over and over. And so you see they came, He did the whole fox thing. I mean, this is a strong, I have it in my Bible right here. There's a strong story of revenge and reaction. That's just part of Samson's life. And they kill, they burn his wife and her father with fire, which is exactly what they say they were going to do if she didn't tell them what the riddle was. So they follow through on that right there. And it says, this is what you do. I swear I will be avenged upon you, and after that I will quit. So he says he's going to be done. It said he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow, and he went down and stayed at the cleft of the rock of Etam. So he physically beats them to death. And that's when you see the Philistine stuff come out. They go against Judah, who's always strong. And then here you have more repetition inside the word for Samson. They say, we've come to bind Samson. There's some more foreshadowing there with the Delilah story. This idea of binding him. Like this binding gets repeated in verse 10. It gets repeated in verse 12. It gets repeated in verse 13 twice. I mean, just kind of over and over and over. And it's also the detail in verse 13 about the new ropes. There's so much Delilah foreshadowing in this piece that's right here. Then yet again you see the Spirit of the Lord. Now this idea of binding in Hebrew, what this really means is to imprison. In case they're seeking to contain, to stop all this sort of thing. But the ropes, it's like almost like magic, just disappear underneath his own strength. You got him reacting yet again. He said he'd be done, but now he's reacting yet again. The fresh jawbone of a donkey, put out his hand and took it, and then killed 1,000 men with the donkey's jawbone. That's just. And then it goes into this weird poetry again with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey. I have struck down 1,000 men. So you have Samson's weird poetic riddle side. Which only show that's done now. That doesn't show up again in the Samson story. And then you see the whole thirsty thing, and it's like that. Like the guy is just so narcissistic. I mean,
all he's worried about is
everything is himself. Everything is himself, and so that pattern of judges of everyone did what's right in their own eyes. Like Samson.
He's the embodiment of it.
He is the embodiment of this. And this whole story is just what happens when people have just moral collapse. And what's so wild is, we've read Judges already.
Yes.
This is nothing.
It's
nothing. It is as much as you think, you're like, oh my goodness.
It's crazy. It just gets worse.
This is nothing. So the second half of the story, like I said, we're at that point in Judges now where things are getting really different. And like we're starting to see this larger circling purpose of the book, of the story of just what happens when people are completely self-referenced. And that's where early on somebody said, like, where do we learn about Jesus inside of this book? Well, it's kind of tough, but like where we hit now is this point of self-referencing. Like what happens when you're consistently self-referenced? This is where you get to. So. Most metal moment of the week.
It was obviously him killing 1,000 people with a donkey jaw. Come on, man.
I'm kind of like you. I think the lion thing.
That was pretty metal.
What was the phrase you used?
2 pieces of a lion flying.
2 pieces of a lion flying. Man, that's solid right there.
That's wild.
So we're going to jump back on hopefully next week.
Yep, hopefully.
Finish out the Samson story, and then we're getting to the end.
Yeah, we're getting almost there.
Yeah. So I'm Chad. This is Graham. Thanks for watching The Bible is Metal, and we will see you next time.